What's going on, Forceful Players? Ryan Miles here from On Tilt Gaming, here with episode number 4 of the Daily Mileage. If you like that title, let me know. If you think you can do better finding a title for this daily series that I'm having a lot of fun doing, please leave a comment down below or on social media letting me know what you think we could do. So far I like Daily Mileage. So far I like Ryan's Ramblings because I do a lot of rambling here and my name, in fact, is Ryan. But anyway, today is Thursday and that will, in the future, mean that we will be doing a Throwback Thursday. But considering we've already talked about the Wanderer ban list and how we got to where we are now, and we already talked about the Legacy Lost format and how that was like one of my favorite healthy formats that we've had. Today we're going to talk about Today Thursday, and because we've got a very narrow window before we see hopefully the ban list come down and Scheherazade get kind of murdered in some aspect with the release of the next set, I want to talk about Scheherazade while we still can, and because the Toronto GP is this weekend and we've got pretty much 2 days until that happens. So let's talk about Scheherazade. Let's talk about ways to play matchups in the metagame. Let's talk about cards that I think are bad. Let's talk about cards that I think are good. Let's talk about the different types of Scheherazade decks, and let's just, really break this ruler down. So first up, I want to talk about the Genie, right? The evil Genie. I think that this card is one of the best cards in the deck. I've seen a couple blue lists and the French list that just happened, and just decks that play the evil wizard in lieu of the evil genie. But overall, I think evil genie is like the best thing you can be doing in that matchup in the deck, right? And it's not really too much because of the mirror, even though it is definitely a big factor. But it's it's against the aggressive decks, right? So the doll wizard's pretty cool when you want to get a lot of value, you want to draw a lot of cards, and you want your dolls to be as big as possible. But when your dolls are bigger, you're not really hitting a lot of power points, relevant numbers. Like if you have your patrol doll be like a 13-13 instead of an 11-11, it still needs 4 direct attacks to your opponent's face to kill them. Your your Ava being a 12-12 instead of a 10-10, even though it's probably an 11-11 instead of a 9-9, because that deck doesn't turbo 5 as often. It still takes, it's like the difference between 4 and 5 attacks to kill your opponent. But if you hit Legend 5, it's 4 attacks versus 4 attacks. So I don't think that the doll wizard does a whole bunch, and the fact that it doesn't really contest anything that Keurig does at all, and kind of has a worse Keurig matchup than a deck running Evil Genie, it's just not a card I really enjoy. But it is also something I haven't tested a lot with, so I can't really speak too much from experience. I just know that Evil Genie is incredibly powerful. And the reason for that is because it once you hit that Legend 5, even if you're not turboing out, right? So Keurig is maybe one of those matchups where you do want to aggressively hit Legend 5 so that you're getting this 7-7 on the board that also has an enter ability of killing a guy and also makes them discard a card. But Evil Genie also has a very good stat line, right? So even though it's 1 more mana than Wizard, I don't want to compare them stat wise, but 7-7 is so good against Keurig because not only is Genie making them lose a Resonator when you cast it, but 7-7 is big enough to beat up a Piggy, crucially, so it can attack into a rested Piggy, the 5-7, and the Piggy will die. But it's also strong enough to survive beating up a Sylvia. So even though you can't really block Sylvia with Genie, after you take the 6 damage, the Genie can attack back into the Sylvia and kill it. So you're making them discard a card, you're making them banish a Resonator, and then you're contesting their board. So you just have so much pressure from Genie in the Keurig matchup. And then when you also come down to the mirror match, obviously a lot of the mirrors are playing, Gretel, and Lorite's a pretty good card overall. But sometimes Avas just stick, and there's not a whole lot of removal that you really want to be running, especially the blue lists. A lot of the removal is either Final Battle or it's Bear Magic. So if you need to be able to stick a guy on board to be able to contest an Ava if you're playing the blue list. And if the so say for example, this is getting a little bit abstract, but let's say that I'm playing a blue list that plays Bear Magic and the Puppet Master, and my opponent is playing a not blue list, but they're playing a Turbo Legend 5 with Genies, right? Let's say they manage to resolve an Ava, stick it on the board. I don't have the Fair Spell. I just have Severing Winds. I don't have Fair Spell at all. I can't counter it when it hits the field. And they've stuck a 9-9, right? or an 8/8, a 10/10, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. In order for me to not just eat 9 damage and get that guy off the board, if I'm not playing Ginny, I need to stick a Resonator and then block with that Resonator and then resolve a Bear Magic. So if I play my Doll Wizard, my Puppet Master, I keep calling him Doll Wizard. He's a Wizard Resonator and he affects dolls, but his name is Puppet Master. I do apologize. So I need to pay 2 mana to play my Puppet Master, and then when they enter combat, I need to have enough mana to threaten a Bear Magic, and then if they counter it, be able to cast it again. So that's like a lot of mana investment to be able to do that. But also I just get blown out by Ginny, right? So I don't have any Resonators to block with to activate my Bear Magic if my opponent is using an Evil Ginny to remove my board. And then, like, obviously it's pretty good to try and maintain your Ruin Stories in your extra deck. So you don't want to aggressively Turbo 5, especially in the mirror, because mostly you will get to that late game. But in situations where a Ginny is resolving, it quickly accelerates the game towards having less cards and to damage being pushed. So in that situation where my opponent like resolved an Ava and then, like, again, assuming I don't have like Fire Spell or something, they resolved an Ava and I tried to play a guy to like use a Bear Magic combat trick, and if they just plopped the Ginny on me to kill my Resonator and then push 10 damage, like, I have to final battle that turn, or else I can't final battle for the rest of the game, because next turn they're going to push like 17 damage. And if they have a second Ginny, like, it's completely backbreaking. So like the Ginny chains are what really make him so good, where you get to play one and then cast another one on top of it. Like, that gets kind of insane pretty quickly. But also, like, you get to hit this very powerful curve of like Ginny on 3 into like Ginny on 4 into like flip your ruler. And like once you've cast a couple of Ginnies, not only have you removed their blockers to allow your Resonators to push through damage, but you've also just dealt 400 each time you cast them. And because like final battle is the second, like one of the only ways to really answer the Scheherazade flip, being able to pressure the life total is just so effective in the mirror match. That kind of brings me to a point where, like, one of the things I see a lot of people do in Scheherazade mirrors is they kind of just flip when they run out of gas in their hand, and really you just want to kind of do everything you can to make sure that you're not flipping first. And like sometimes it just doesn't get to that point, but when you flip first in the Scheherazade matchup, you're almost like guaranteed to lose. Like, let's say you're 2 dudes behind on board, so you hit your 5 legend. You flip your ruler, you put one of their dudes on top, you get out an Eve from your deck, you put one of their dudes on bottom, and then they just flip their ruler. The 2 guys that you just searched get put on top and bottom, and then they've got 3 guys on board. So like you just immediately come out behind by flipping your ruler, and you almost need to like have final battle. Like, the only time that you can like flip first and then be okay is if you also have a final battle to back it up, and you're reasonably certain that you'll win the counter war. And even then, if they have their own final battle, or they don't even need their own final battle, right? Because all you have is a 10/10 flyer. If they have like a Ruin Stories to flip back down their stories and then start like agonying your ruler every time it tries to attack, like, they can very easily come back in the game. So it's just a very difficult situation to find yourself in, where flipping your ruler first is a winning play. Just something I've noticed in the Scheherazade matchups that I'm sure is obvious to anyone who's been playing the game or the deck in the mirror for a long time, but I do still see people like panic mode flipping, even instead of just like holding a 4-card hand and just like letting their opponent be scared of stuff. I don't know. So anyway, talking a bit more about Genie and Doll Wizard, I'm still like struggling to understand exactly why people enjoy the Doll Wizard. I think it's because of like the mirror match. I could see it if you like played enough Lorite to make sure that Ginny wasn't a problem and things like that, but it just seems like a very difficult thing to be able to cast a 2-mana Resonator at sorcery speed and then not get punished by certain things. Like, even if apologies. So if it was a really reliable play to be able to cast a 2-mana Resonator and have it stick, and then like be able to do that against a Ginny deck, why wouldn't it just be Abdul, you know? Because then instead of being incredibly weak to Genie, you just blow Genie out of the water. Like, you just like, I mean, I guess because they're playing this blue version that plays the Puppet Master, they're not super worried about like losing their I really can't. I'm like trying to talk through it to like understand it, but it's just something that I can't follow along with very well. It just doesn't seem like. All right, so let's break it down. You're trying to play the long game, right? In that matchup, you're trying to have your dolls be bigger than your opponent's dolls because of this Puppet Master. You're trying to, every time you cast a doll, you want to draw a card, so you want to like play the long game. You're not trying to Legend 5. You're trying to cast dolls and draw cards. You're trying to cycle Ruin Stories and draw cards. It's literally just a matter of making sure that your opponent isn't pressuring you down quickly. And because you have Bear Magic, as soon as you're able to stick any Resonator, you can win Combat Wars. And also, if your opponent just doesn't draw the Genie, then you're probably going to be in a favorable situation, is what I think is happening. And I completely agree with this line of thinking. But I do think that, like, the Kirik matchup, especially, like, being the number 2 deck, I just think that, like, that Genie is that much stronger for that reason. Sorry for rambling kind of through that. I know that was a little bit scatterbrained, but I just haven't experienced the Puppet Master a whole lot. So I'm like trying to understand it, and that's the best estimate I can get, is that there are situations where it's better than the mirror, but because it's so much worse in the Kirik matchup, and because like there are situations where the Ginny version is just gonna like plow you down with tempo instead of playing that long grindy game, I would always recommend playing the Ginny version over the doll version or the Puppet Master version. So next topic is something that I talked a little bit about with some of the people at the Wanderer GP, and that is the presence of Tama in Scheherazade. It is something that I have never played. I've like tested it, but it's another matchup. It's another like really good against Kirik kind of card. So I'm talking about how like Ginny I think is better than Puppet Master because Ginny is better in the Kirik matchup. Tama is a card that's kind of good in both, but I don't like it for a couple of reasons. So it's good against Kirik because it pairs up with your True Blades to make sure that they never can stick a Resonator. Like it deals like Tama plus True Blade deals 700 damage for essentially 1 mana, but kind of 2 mana. And it keeps your card count up, so you can keep like finding cards you need. But I really like casting a story on turn 1. I really like casting Approaching the Truth or Scarlet's Agony, depending on if I'm first or stuff like that. So I really don't like wasting my early turns to Tama, and I understand like sometimes it's fine to do because you're preventing damage, but it's just something that doesn't like feel particularly necessary, and I've never had too much of a problem like handling Kirik Resonators, right? If you're playing the strictly green-black list, then absolutely. Sorry, I just like punched my mouse across the screen. So if you're playing the strictly green-black version with Spirit Stones, right, then yes, Tama is an auto-include because you don't have the tools that I'm about to mention in other colors that are able to handle, 5/7s and 6/6s. But if you're playing blue, you've got Bear Magic, so not only can you just use that card to mitigate damage by removing Swiftness from a Resonator and removing abilities from a Resonator, or just by turning something into something smaller, so that like turning a flyer into a non-flyer so that you can block it, or turning a Sylvia into not a Sylvia so that she doesn't have her ability to make something unable to block, stuff like that. Like Bear Magic's pretty good, and then something I actually like a lot, this is something I played in Minneapolis, is Shayla's Return. It's not something you necessarily need to main deck, but in the side deck it was kind of a blowout. Like anytime because Scheherazade just like naturally draws like more cards than almost any other deck. Like Kirik draws more cards, but they're only drawing battle arts. Like the Resonators are the only thing that's going to win them the game, especially with like Play Dead, being a spell, but like really needing a Resonator on the board to be effective. Shayla's Return was enough like tempo to give me back the board so that I could end up like taking games off of Kirik very easily. But yeah, those are like things that the blue deck has, and then like Bear Magic being the main thing, and then like white has a Miscalc, so like that's just like strictly better than like Tama True Blade because it is just 1 mana kill something instead of 2 mana kill something. But yeah, so I think that in green black, yes, Tama is good, but outside of that, like people are still playing Tama, even in the Wanderer. Like when you have access to like Gretel and stuff as like these little guys, people are still playing Tama. And there's another argument, of course, right, that it's still good against Scheherazade mirrors because of the banish abilities. So if I want to play a genie, if you have a Tama on the field, I have to like True Blade your Tama before I'm able to get the genie off. And that's pretty annoying, but like because you're playing so many True Blade in most of the lists, like you're playing at least 2. I would argue that 3 is probably the correct number in New Frontiers, but like some decks even play 4. It just doesn't, it's not super necessary to worry about it, I guess. Like it's usually pretty easy to like find at least 1 copy to be able to kill off Tamas and Lorites and stuff like that. And like, yeah, Tama's also good at killing off opposing Lorites, but I don't know. It's just something that has really clogged my opening turns. And I have the same opinion on Tama as I do on Thought Control. Like, I think it's definitely a good card. It's just hard to find the time to cast it. And that's like the main thing. Like, I definitely think that it's good. Like, I've been listing like reasons it's good in Keurig, reasons it's good in but anyway, that's like my thoughts on it. I don't have like a definitive like thing to draw from this. It's just kind of like my thoughts, my opinions. I don't like Tama. I like Genie more than Puppet Master, and I think that they're actually both completely viable for different reasons. It's just like I said, it's a matter of finding time to cast a Tama, mostly because like you can cast it turn 1, but it's not as good as Approach. Sometimes you do need to turbo out Legend 5 on like turn 4, turn 5. And like you're not going to have time to actually cast Approach because you're going to be casting Resonators and then fighting over Resonators and stuff like that. And because Approach digs 2 cards instead of 1 card, it's like a little bit better than Tama. And then like if you draw multiple Tamas, like that's when it gets really hard to cast Tama, because like yeah, you can probably cast one on turn 1, but like the second copy, like you don't want to cast it turn 2 because you want to like threaten to play an Ava. If you have like an Ava in your hands, just a better card than Tama, that kind of stuff. And I just like, I think there's a lot of good cards that you can put in a Scheherazade deck, especially a blue one, especially a white one. There's a lot of like viable cards that are going to eat up your 40 slots. So Tama is just like one of the less impactful cards. Like it is good, but I don't care about it so much that I've ever felt like I needed to play it over other things. And especially in the Wanderer tournament that we just had. Like, I played a 42 card deck with 0 Tama. I could not find any way that I would be able to fit Tama in that deck. But it's also less important in that meta, where, like, Tama True Blade doesn't kill as much out from the popular decks. So, you know, I feel a lot more confident in saying that Tama isn't necessary in Wanderer than I do in New Frontiers. But personally, I don't like it in New Frontiers. And I'm completely okay with being wrong on that. This is just my thoughts. So that's my Scheherazade spiel. That was kind of all over the place. And again, I've kind of been Wanderer-brained for the past couple weeks, so I do apologize for really trying to remember how New Frontiers Scheherazade plays out. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Once again, if you have an idea for a name for this series, please feel free to drop it below. We'll find something cool here by the end of the week. And I hope you guys had a great day. Hope you guys had a great time, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.